So today we're going to be making Loft House cookies, and if you've ever had Loft House cookies, you know what I'm talking about. They are the tender, cakey type sugar cookies topped with delicious buttercream and sprinkles, and I wanted to bring you guys along today. So first we're going to need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. We are going to need a 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon salt. We're also going to add to that a tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to need a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Now make sure this is a full fat sour cream, none of the diet stuff for this recipe. You're going to want a 1/2 cup, which is 1 stick of unsalted room temperature butter. You're also going to need 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and a 1/4 teaspoon of almond emulsion. Now if you don't have almond emulsion, that's okay. You can use almond extract in its place, or you can omit it altogether and just add an additional 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract to your flavorings. We also have 1 large egg at room temperature. And then we also have here 1 cup of white granulated sugar. Now to our mixing bowl, I'm going to add my 1/2 cup or 1 stick of room temperature soft butter. Now you don't want your butter melted, but you do want it room temperature. And the reason for the egg and the sour cream and the butter being room temperature is that it will come together a lot easier. So we're going to go ahead and dump that in, and we're going to add the sugar. And we're going to go ahead and put in our paddle attachment, and then we're just going to turn that on, and we're going to let it go ahead and cream until it's light and fluffy. And that's going to be probably about 3 minutes. So once it's been going about 3 minutes, I'll bring you back. Our mixer has been going about 3 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and scrape down the sides of this to make sure that all of that butter and sugar are getting incorporated, and then we're going to turn it on for just a few more minutes. Now, of course, you know here in the South, when I say a few more minutes, I really meant probably about 30 more seconds. So next, we're going to add to that our extracts. We are going to add in our large egg, and we're going to turn that back on just for a few seconds to go ahead and incorporate. We'll scrape down our sides as needed to make sure that it gets fully blended. And then we're going to go ahead and add in our sour cream. Guys, I just love these little spatulas. They're silicone spatulas. I get them at the Dollar Tree for $1, and they're so perfect for cooking with. We're going to go ahead and scrape that down again and give it one final mix. Now in a separate bowl, I went ahead and added my flour, my baking powder, my baking soda, cornstarch, and my salt, and I just gave it a good whisk. And we're going to slowly add this to the mixture that's in our stand mixer, and we're going to mix it just until combined. We do not want to overmix it at this point, so I'm going to add about 1/3 of it. Turn it on low. gonna help it along by scraping down the sides. If you over mix it, your cookies will be tough instead of tender and cakey, and we don't want that. So I'm going to get this all mixed in together, and then I'll bring you back for the next step. Okay, so we have finished mixing up our cookie dough, and we are going to place it onto some plastic wrap and kind of shape it into a disc. Your dough is going to be tacky and kind of sticky, and that's completely normal. We just want to shape it into a disc. And then we're going to pop this into the refrigerator for about an hour before we go to the next step. And guys, I just want to tell you that this recipe is inspired by our friends over at Prep Kitchen. We love this recipe. We've made a few tweaks with it to make it our own. Our cookie dough has been in the refrigerator for about an hour, and we have taken it out and we have rolled it between 2 sheets of parchment paper. I have also put that parchment paper on top of a silicone mat. This silicone mat helps protect my counter from when I'm using the metal cookie cutter to cut out the shapes. Now this cookie dough is still a bit sticky and tacky, so just be mindful of that when you're working with it. I choose to not add any flour to the surface because I don't want to incorporate any unnecessary flour into my cookies, because I think that it makes them a little tougher. So if you can work with it without doing that, certainly do so. If you feel like you need to add a little bit of flour to make it easier to work with, you can do that as well. I also like using this Joseph & Joseph rolling pin. I really like this rolling pin because it comes with several different discs that are designed to help you roll your cookie dough or your breads out to a certain thickness, and it's even. Like this one is a 1/4 inch, which is what you definitely need to roll this cookie to. So you can find these on Amazon. I highly recommend them. Absolutely love them. All right, so we're just going to cut out our cookies and place them onto a parchment lined cookie sheet. Your oven should be preheated to 375 degrees as well. And you're going to bake these for approximately 8 minutes. I am placing these on a parchment lined cookie sheet. You're going to bake them approximately 8 minutes, but you're going to want to start watching them around 6.5 to 7 minutes, because all ovens are different and your baking times can vary based on so many different factors depending on where you live. So definitely start watching them. You want to be watching for slightly golden edges. When you see that, you want to remove them from the oven and let them completely cool. Maybe about 3 or 4 minutes on the cookie sheet, and then transfer them to a wire rack to finish completely cooling before we go to the next step. So we're just going to re-roll this between the parchment. See how easy that is, that rolling pin with the guides on it? It just automatically helps me roll it very quickly to 1/4 inch thickness. I'm going to pull that parchment off. I find that wax paper does not work near as well. So I buy these pre-cut parchment sheets on Amazon, and I love them. If you find that your cookie cutter is sticking, you can dip your cookie cutter in a little bit of flour. Just be careful not to transfer too much of it back to your cookie dough. Just dip it in there to dust it, and then tap it to get off any excess. And then you can peel your cookies off the parchment as you're re-rolling them. We're just going to continue this process until we have a full cookie sheet, and then I will bring you guys back once they have baked and are cooling. I'm just going to continue to cut out the cookies with my 2.5 inch circle cookie cutter, trying not to work the dough too much as I'm re-rolling it. The more you work the dough, the tougher the cookie will be. And this this recipe makes about 32 cookies. Next, we're going to make our buttercream that's going to go on top of our Loft House cookies. And to make that, I'm actually going to use my smaller KitchenAid versus my larger one we used earlier. This KitchenAid is a K45 series, and it was originally introduced, I think, by KitchenAid in maybe 1962. This was my grandmother's KitchenAid, and it's smaller, and honestly, it still works probably better than my larger, newer KitchenAid. But I love it. It's definitely a blessing to have it. So to the bowl of our stand mixer, we are going to add a half a cup of soft room temperature butter. And we're just going to cream that until it's nice and fluffy. We continue to scrape down the sides as needed to make sure that everything gets fully incorporated. Now to the creamed butter, we're going to add our powdered sugar. This recipe calls for about 2 cups of powdered sugar, and we're going to add that 1 cup at a time. And we will continue to scrape down the sides as we go to help it incorporate. And when you turn your mixer back on, be sure to turn it on slow, very low speed, so you don't get a big white cloud. We're also going to add the equivalent of a couple of tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, as well as 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. The amount of heavy whipping cream that you will need is greatly determined on a couple of different factors, such as humidity and elevation. So you're just looking for good spreadable consistency. And we decided to color the buttercream light pink, so I added 1 drop of AmeriColor pink food gel. I'm just scraping down those sides again to make sure it all gets really good and incorporated. And give it a final stir here. Add a little bit more heavy whipping cream. And we are about done. Next, we're going to take the buttercream we just made, and we're going to use an offset spatula to apply it to the top of our sugar cookies. If you don't have an offset spatula, you can use a butter knife or a case knife. You just want to use little circular motions to apply it to the top of the cookie. You can be as generous as you want with your buttercream. If you do like a lot of buttercream, I recommend doubling the batch for the buttercream recipe. This batch of cookies makes about 32 cookies. We colored ours light pink, but you can color them any color you want. We also used a food gel. Food gels will not change the consistency of your buttercream like traditional water-based food colorants will. Now, once you get all of the buttercream on your cookies, you can top them off with your favorite sprinkles. Can never go wrong with sprinkles. And it's that simple. Store these on your counter in an airtight container for up to a week. I definitely hope you'll make these at home. I know that you and your family will enjoy them. They're great for any occasion, but especially birthdays and holidays. They travel well and they're very easy for kids if you want to get them involved in the kitchen.